So this is not as much a lie as it is a performance. When we look at actors, they're not really lying, right? We accept that what they're engaging in is a fiction. Now, this lie is a story. And the key to the story, it rests on two pillars, okay? It needs to be long. The story needs to be long. And the punchline needs to be delivered in such a way that everyone that's listened to your story will realize that they've been lied to. This is one of the best stories I have ever heard in my life, and it's completely fictitious. I'll just tell you this as another preface, and just to make it very, very clear what we're doing here. This is a story that you tell people that just makes them, you grab their full attention, keep them on the line as long as you can, and then at the very, very end, they find out in one fell swoop that it was a big lie, okay? And the fallout is very entertaining. I've been telling this story for over 30 years and regularly. And the people who you tell the story to, I've told it at work a lot, and people, they love it. I've had one person get mad at me. One person was like really annoyed. And I remember he heard me tell the story to somebody else and he couldn't wait to hear it. Even the one person that got mad at me, and I've only had one person not believe the story. Most people believe it. It all depends on how you lock them in, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So it was, and I apologize if this is a long video, but it kind of has to be because I want to give you the story. I am going to limit some details, but that's another key to the story is details, and I'll get to that in a minute. So back in 1992, I was working at Kroger. Kroger is a grocery store. And I was in high school, and it's the same grocery store, which I embarrassed myself in an earlier video. And this guy comes up to me, I was working in the produce section, and he goes, I'm gonna tell you a story, and this is how you tell the story, and you need to tell this to your friends. I was okay. And he told me the story. When he got done, I thought, what a good idea. Whoever came up with this is a genius. So I went to school, and I was standing around, and I decided I was going to give this a shot. So I told somebody the story, and as I was telling the story, a group of people gathered around. And when I got done and told the punchline, there was this collective moan followed by some laughter. It's like, oh, and then people started laughing. And there was one guy, really nice guy, his name was Joe. He goes, what? Wow. And another guy looks at him and goes, Joe, it was a lie. It's not true. And he went, oh. That was great. That was the first time I told the story. And I knew I had a winner on my hands. And again, years of telling this story. At the break room, one time at work in the break room, I remember some people heard I was getting ready to tell the story and just piled in. The whole break room wanted to hear it. It was hilarious. And you'll have nothing but great memories. You got to tell somebody this story. And you may not be a good storyteller. Go for it anyway. All right, so another key to it, before I get to it here, is this. Over the years of telling the story, I've added in details. Details are very important. You want as many small details as you can, which means you want to grab things from your real life and throw them into the story, okay? So I will now begin telling you the story, and I'm passing this to you. This is a gift, okay, from history to you, okay? And it's good stuff. Now, how do you lock people into the story? The way you lock them in is this. And you'll have a certain success rate getting to the story this way. And you have to be okay with not telling the story sometimes because time permitting, and also just it's just really hard to get people sometimes to not tell long stories themselves. It's worth it. And not only that, it's a good conversation starter anyway. So you can break the ice at a party or talk to people at work about this. So what you do is you go, hey, just out of curiosity, what's the worst first date you've ever been on? And a lot of times, about half the time, people will say, I don't know, I can't think of it. And some people don't date, some people just kind of hang out, whatever. Um, but try to get at least one person, if you're in a group, to tell you their story first. And what this does is puts them in a certain mindset, right? That you're digging through history. And in fact, goes so far as if they say, well, do you have a bad first date? Say, oh yeah, I got a horrible first date story, but I don't want to tell it to you until you've told me yours because mine's kind of long. And it just puts people in the mindset of, oh, we're digging in history, right? This is he's got something up his sleeve, or she, or whatever. He's got a story to tell. Although I've never thought before, maybe females would, they could have a version of this, I guess. I've never thought about it that way. I apologize for that. Anyway, okay. When you finally do get to tell your story, again, I will actually be omitting some details, but I'm going to tell you at least enough to get you where you can make up your own version of this. So when you get to the point you can tell your story, here's what you do. You go, well, it was back when I was in high school, and I had a friend named Teresa. And again, that's my own detail. It's a real person from my past. And we were just friends, completely platonic. Nothing ever happened there. And so we would hang out during weekdays, after school. And then, on weekends we'd hang out too. And she got a boyfriend from out of town. He lived in a place called Bryant Station. And he only saw her on weekends. And this guy was really jealous of me. Even though nothing had ever happened between her and I, he just got very, very jealous. And he didn't like me. He wouldn't talk to me. It was very clear he didn't like me. Then one day, Teresa contacted me and she said, hey, would you want to go to Bryant Station's, prom? And I was like, Bryant Station's prom? With what? With you and your boyfriend? And she's like, no. He's got a friend who's never been to one of her dances, and he's looking for somebody to take her. And I thought, well, why would he? I mean, she's never been to a dance. And she's like, well, here's the picture. Being a high schooler and being kind of shallow, I looked at the picture and she was very cute, very attractive. I was like, wait a minute. You mean to tell me this girl has never been to one of her dances? And Teresa said, well, he told me that she's always, busy with school stuff, that she's going to go away to college. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, yeah, sure. Why not? It's something to do that weekend. I like dances. It'll be a good time. So I'll go to find her house, and it's in a place called Frankfort, which is the capital of the state I live in Kentucky. And I go down her driveway, and it's a long paved driveway. And in this part of the state, to have a paved driveway is very, very expensive. And I pull up, and there's all these little side trails I noticed. They just had a lot of property. And I thought, what kind of house they living in? And I pull up, and it's just a mansion. A mansion. So I go, ring the doorbell. The mother comes to the door, lets me in. There's a beautiful staircase leading up. And her mom's just talking my ear off. This is going on almost feels like forever. Probably it was only 10 minutes or so. It felt forever. And finally she goes, oh dear, she's with her dad. He'll have her down in a minute. Which struck me really strange. Her dad is helping her get dressed? Well, that's a little weird. And he'll have her down. And what does that mean? I found out. He was carrying her because she didn't have any legs. The second I saw her, I knew what was going on. This guy had set me up. He was trying to get me, And being a high schooler, you just don't know how to handle a situation like this. And I was just like, oh. And she was coming down the stairs, and she was smiling and happy, and I was like, oh. I just didn't know. I was shocked. So next thing I know, we're in the car, and back then there's a place called Applebee's. It's a restaurant that a lot of high schoolers went to if you couldn't afford a really nice restaurant for prom. And we walked in, and the girls were really happy to see us, just so excited for her. And the guys were laughing. All the guys were laughing. And I'll tell you something. That's not what pissed me off. What really, really pissed me off is they wouldn't look at me. See the details here? Little details. It matters. Things that imagine what it'd be like, like what would really set you off. I wasn't so mad that they were laughing. That would have made me mad. What made me mad, though, is they just wouldn't look at me. It's like, so you went through this much trouble to try to embarrass me, but you can't even look at me. Okay. Now, I saw Teresa. I could see on looking at her face. He had told her minutes before we got there. I could just tell. And she was looking at me just like. So we're sitting around dinner and, we get done eating. It's time to go to the prom. So we go to the prom. Again, fast forward here. You need to probably add in some more details if you'd like. So we go to the prom. And so I'm thinking, everybody's dancing, having a good time. And I'm thinking, well, I'll get her punch and things to eat. And I'm going to get her punch. And I know she's getting kind of irritated with me. And I'm like, what's wrong? And she's like, I'm at my prom. I kind of like to dance. And I'm like, how are we going to dance? So we pull out her wheelchair and I put her in the wheelchair. And when you need to stand up and play this out, very important you do that. I'm looking around confused and shaking her arms, and the girls are walking by and just looking at her and doing this, and I'm looking, and then the guys are just doing this, just laughing at me, man. And she takes the brake on her wheelchair and locks it so I can spin her. And oh man, so after the prom, again, fast forward here. After the prom, and notice the story is escalating at absurdity. That's very important. After the prom, someone who had graduated 2 years before was old enough to rent a hotel room. So we all went back to the hotel room. And her father he was very protective of her, I could tell. He made it very clear, I want her back no later than 1 o'clock. We got to the hotel room at 1:15. And I was so scared to say, I have to take you back because of how irritated I made her at the dance. I was like, I want to make her think that I would just want to take her away from her and her friends. They clearly had set all this up to have a good time, And I said, look, I hate to tell you this. Your dad said I had to get you back. And she was like, oh, okay, let's go. I was like, well, that's weird. That's a strange reaction. Not what I was expecting at all, especially since we just kind of settled in and we're supposed to be having fun. And she seemed kind of excited to go home. And she goes, listen, when you go down the driveway, there's a little path. I want you to take that path. You can drive through it. And I was like, I don't know. She's like, we're not going to be far from my house. We can hang out for a little bit. I'm like, all right. I wonder, I guess this is what she was excited about. I don't know. So we pull off the path. And I'll admit, now, all things being equal, this would have been nice. It was an overlook of the Capitol building. And this is just kind of part of the beauty of this property. And probably what was one of the selling points of this thing. I mean, it was just gorgeous. She just said, let's just sit on the hood of the car. It's kind of been a dream of mine I never have time to do things like this, I was like, okay. So I sit her on the hood of the car, and we're sitting there. And one thing, leads to another. And, we start making out. And it's accelerating fast. And I'm getting more and more uncomfortable because this is all happening so quick, and it's just so strange. And all of a sudden, she grabs a tree branch and starts to pull herself up as we're kind of making out. And I'm going, I don't know, what does she want? And I had just, as a young person, had just reached my limit. And now I kind of, looking at hindsight, know exactly what she wanted. But at the time, I had no idea. And it just was weird. And I was like, I'm sorry. I was like, your dad's going to kill me. He's going to kill me. And I had that idea, her dad on my mind. And I was like, I'm sorry. I am taking you back home. I don't care how close we are. So we go, I get her in the car. We come around. Her dad is standing on the front porch, waiting. He comes down. Now, when you tell him this part of the story, You need to go to shake their hand. Say, this is what he did. Go to shake their hand. They won't want you to. They'll think you're going to do something bad. So you have to encourage them. So no, just trust me. Shake my hand. And shake their hand and shake it really hard. And you say, he looked at you and he said, thank you so much. Most guys leave her hanging from the tree. 90% of the time they'll know. It may not seem like it as I'm telling you the story right now, but 90% of the time they'll know it was a joke. And then you should just do that and then just walk away. Or do that and just laugh at them. Whatever. But let them know you've just lied to them. Okay? They will understand it as a performance. They'll understand that you just wasted my time with this story. But you didn't. You actually gave them a gift. Trust me, experience speaking here. They will love this. They will want you. I had a guy used to ask me almost every day, they're new hires, man. You got to tell them the story. They're new hires. You got to go tell them the story. Like, he wanted to hear the story over and over and over. The more you embellish, the better. The more details, the better. I apologize for how long this was, but the whole point the whole point of this story, no less than 10 minutes. Make sure it takes a long time. You want them, it won't be boring, but the point is when you get to the end that none of that was true. None of that was true. That's the whole point of the whole thing. And it took that long to tell the story, but they'll never forget it. You'll give them the time of their life. Have a good one.